She stood at the edge of the dock, her designer heels clicking against the wooden planks, the wind from the ocean tangling her sleek hair. "Make this yacht run," she scoffed, her voice slicing through the salt air, "and I'll kiss you at the dock." Her tone wasn't playful, it was pure mockery. Behind her, a few of her employees chuckled quietly, waiting to see the janitor embarrass himself. But the man she mocked, Ethan, just smiled, a quiet, steady smile that hinted at something no one there could see. He had been underestimated all his life, and today wouldn't be any different. Ethan had worked at the marina for 6 long years, scrubbing decks, tightening loose bolts, mopping up oil spills, and watching people in sharp suits walk past him as if he were invisible. He never complained. Once, long ago, he'd had everything: a successful engineering firm, a loving partner, a dream that ran on engines and seawater. But betrayal had stolen all of that from him. The man who was once celebrated as a genius marine engineer was now just the janitor. The CEO, Victoria Lang, had no idea who she was speaking to. To her, Ethan was just another man with calloused hands and grease-stained clothes. Her newly acquired company Yacht, the Aurora, had been lifeless for months. Technicians, mechanics, engineers, none of them had managed to fix it. Furious at the delays, she'd turned the situation into a challenge, part frustration, part spectacle. When Ethan had quietly offered to take a look, the laughter had erupted instantly. "You," she said, eyebrows raised in disbelief. "You clean the floors, not the engines. If you can make this yacht run, I'll kiss you right here at the dock." "But you won't." The crowd had laughed with her. But Ethan only nodded. "Deal," he said softly. He climbed aboard, the wood creaking beneath his boots, his rough hands brushing against the polished railing. For a brief moment, his breath hitched. This yacht's design, it was familiar. Almost heartbreakingly so. He recognized his own blueprint in it, the same design that his ex-partner had stolen years ago, claiming it as his own while Ethan was forced into silence. The ghost of that betrayal burned in his chest. He knelt under the deck, where the air was heavy with the scent of oil, salt, and stale metal. His fingers grazed the wires and bolts, feeling the machine's pulse as if listening to a heartbeat that had long been still. He could tell right away what was wrong: a small flaw in the ignition circuit, something only someone who understood the heart of the machine could ever notice. Outside, Victoria crossed her arms impatiently. 5 minutes, she said sharply. If you're not done by then, get off my yacht. Ethan said nothing. His hands moved with precision, his mind steady. A twist of the valve, a bridge between two circuits, a single deep breath, and then he turned the key for a heartbeat. There was silence. Then came a cough, a growl, and finally a deep, powerful roar. The engine came alive, echoing across the dock, shaking the water with its strength. The Aurora had awakened, the crowd gasped, eyes wide. Victoria's lips parted in shock, her composure breaking for the first time. How did you, she began, but Ethan was already standing, wiping his hands clean. You said you'd kiss me at the dock, he said calmly, a hint of humor in his tone but no arrogance. The crowd broke into laughter and applause, this time in awe, not mockery. Victoria felt her face flush as she stared at him, realizing she had misjudged not just his ability, but his entire being. Who are you? She asked softly. Just a janitor, he replied, though his eyes carried the depth of someone who had lived, lost, and rebuilt himself piece by piece. That night, long after everyone had gone, Victoria sat in her office staring at his employee record. No degree listed. No qualifications. Just years of odd jobs. But one note caught her attention, an old reference from a marine engineering firm she recognized. Curiosity turned into disbelief when she looked deeper. Ethan Miles, co-founder of Blue Wave Technologies, the same company whose early engine design had inspired the Aurora. He had disappeared after a scandal that destroyed his career, accused by his partner of theft. But the more she read, the clearer it became: he hadn't stolen anything. He had been the one betrayed. The next morning, she found him back at the dock, sweeping like nothing had happened. I owe you an apology, she said, stepping closer. He looked up, surprised. For what? For not seeing who you really are. He smiled faintly. You saw enough. The rest doesn't matter. But she shook her head. It does to me. You saved that yacht when no one else could. I want you to come back, not as a janitor, but as my head engineer. Ethan froze, unsure how to respond. The offer sounded like a chance to reclaim the man he once was, but also a risk of losing the peace he'd finally found. "I'll think about it," he said. Finally, weeks passed, and the story of the janitor who fixed the Aurora spread across the docks like fire. Everyone spoke of him with newfound respect, but Ethan remained humble, content to watch the ships glide out to sea, engines humming with life. When the company held the grand relaunch event for the Aurora, Victoria personally invited him. He arrived quietly, dressed simply, the crowd buzzing as he walked by. The sun hung low over the ocean, painting the waves gold. "I'm glad you came," Victoria said, appearing beside him. Her usual sharpness was gone, she looked human, sincere. "The yacht wouldn't be here without you," she continued. "Neither would I." She smiled slightly, remembering her challenge. "You remember what I said that day?" He chuckled softly. "Something about a kiss, I think." Her voice softened. "Yes. Back then, it was arrogance. But now, it's gratitude." The sea breeze brushed between them, carrying the sound of laughter in waves. Then, in the same place where she had once mocked him, she leaned in and kissed him gently. It wasn't about winning or proving anymore, it was about understanding, healing, and respect. When she pulled away, her eyes glistened. "You didn't just make that yacht run, Ethan. You made me believe again, in people, in second chances." He looked out at the horizon, the engine's hum echoing like a heartbeat through the water. "And you reminded me who I am," he said quietly. As the Aurora set sail, slicing through the sunset, Ethan stood at the dock, hands in his pockets, peace written across his face. For years he had been running from his past, but now, he realized, it wasn't the past he needed to escape. It was the belief that he was no longer worthy of building something again. Victoria's voice called out over the sound of the waves, steady and warm. "Don't go too far, janitor. The world still needs what you can fix." He smiled, watching the fading light shimmer on the ocean. "Don't worry," he murmured. "I'm not going anywhere. Not this time."